Welcome to the Insight podcast. My guest on the show today is Dr. Liya Jacob. Liya is a lifestyle medicine physician who has a master's in clinical nutrition. She's also a health and life coach offering courses from fat loss to mindfulness. And her mission is to empower people to reclaim their health and reach their potential, i.e., be the best, healthiest, and happiest version of themselves. I talked to her about why it is we seem to be living in a constant state of anxiety, what the dreaded drama triangle is and how it shows up in her life, an alternative approach to problems, relationships, and healthcare, how you can step into the roles of creator, coach, and challenger, and what that would mean for you and the people around you, and much more. Before we start, a quick favor to ask. If you haven't already, hit the follow button wherever you're tuning into this episode. And if you've been listening to the show for a while, I'd really appreciate it if you rated the show too. This will help more listeners discover the podcast and the insights from my amazing guests. Okay, now for my conversation with Dr. Liya Jacob. Enjoy. You've said society is in a state of anxiety at the moment. What do you mean by this?
That's a really good question, Sam. And I'm going to have to give you a little background about this. So this is a big question. So I have to tell you about the work of two great men to answer this. The first one is Carl Jung. So he was a psychiatrist, and he came up with the sort of different aspects of our personality. So one, I don't know if you've ever done a Myers-Briggs test, but they've used this information in the Myers-Briggs test. So one of the ways we perceive, there's two aspects. So you might, if you do that test, you either fall into sensing, someone who gets all their information sort of through data, through analysis, through their senses, hearing, sight, touch, smell, or you might be an N person, someone who gets their information through their gut instinct, through their spidey sense, through their common sense. And it's not quite logical, that one. You just kind of know the right way, but you can't quite explain it. It's a big picture kind of thinking. So we tend to fall into a preference for two types of perception. And it's that we can all do both of them, but we tend to have a preference. So that's one background bit of knowledge from Carl Jung. And the other great man is Edwin Friedman. And he wrote this amazing book called A Failure of Nerve. And he was a rabbi, he was a family therapist, and he was a leadership consultant. And he had this whole lifetime of experience of trying to solve these complex human problems. And he was writing this book, and then he died. And it was like his life's work culminating into this one book. It was when you even know that story, it makes you want to read it so much. And his family pulled all his notes together and made sure this book was published, because it was like his mission to the world that he had to let them know about this. And one thing he described in that book is that we are in a state of anxiety. And he said a symptom of that anxiety is that we start gathering data. And if you notice around, we are gathering data on an exponential level. It's like, if you just look at sort of so I'm a doctor by background, that number of studies that are being published every day just is exponential. We get to a state where we can't make sense of the data. And I think and I believe what was happening is that when we get into a state of anxiety, we start using the sensing function. We start using, because it feels concrete, the things that we can see with our eyes, that we can hear, that we can feel. As we get anxious, we want to feel solid things in front of us. But Edwin Friedman said the only way out of this bind, and because we can't even make sense of this data. So if you look at people's social media feeds, it really makes my blood boil, but everyone sits on the fence. Everyone says, well, it depends. If you ask them some big question, well, it depends. It's nuanced. That's a word that everyone uses. It's nuanced.
I use that word all the time. Oh no.
Sorry, Sam. But it's just like this fog at the moment, and you can't see the wood for the trees when everything depends and everything is nuanced. Like, how do you take a step forward? And Edwin Friedman said the only way to step forward. Sorry, I might be talking too fast.
Not at all.
It gets me so passionate.
Yeah, don't worry.
He said the only way that you can step forward is to use your gut instinct, what I think was Carl Jung's intuition. You need to use your spidey sense, and you need to make a decision, and you need to take an action. So actually, the anxiety that we feel makes us go S. We need to go N. And that takes a lot of courage and faith to do that. And just one more thing to say about it is that I was working with a coach at that time when I was reading this book. She recommended it to me, Carlin Reifenberg. And he kept talking about these triangles. He said, we get stuck in these triangles, and that's what causes this whole thing to happen. And I said to her, what are these triangles? And she said, the drama triangle. It's the dreaded drama triangle. So I had this epiphany, like what we need as a society is we need to know how to exit the drama triangle. And that involves learning to look at solutions. And so I've developed a workshop about that, how to exit the drama triangle. And the second thing we need as a society is that we need to learn how to consciously use the N function, the intuition function. And I do a course called the Clarity Catalyst, which is a lot about how to harness your intuition. So that was a sort of the big whys of why I started this. Like, how do we solve those two problems that we've got stuck in?
Yeah.
A long answer to a short question.
No, not at all. We want to know more about this dreaded drama triangle. But I think it's cool to linger on that point that you've made already, that it's like the data overwhelms our intuition, and then maybe we're so out of practice with our intuition because we never give it a chance to like rise up, do we? Because we scroll and we keep listening and we keep consuming. We don't just sit and go, actually, what do I think about this? What would 7-year-old me like to do with my time? And all this stuff, it's just quiet, go sit in a corner.
And also because I don't know if you've ever watched that movie WALL-E. It was like I think it was DreamWorks movie. Yeah, I love it. And there's one scene where it shows the people of the future, and they're these like big blob people sitting on chairs, drinking slushies and just swiping and ordering, and the things keep arriving to them. And it's like we are becoming vehicles of mass consumption. And it's so powerful, the marketing that we receive, that we are being trained to disregard our intuition so that we can purchase. People say AI is going to make things better. There's a few fat cats sitting there earning a lot of money, making us laughing their head off while they get rid of our intuition. So you find everything is telling you need to buy this, you need that, you need red light therapy at nighttime, you need to do this. This is the only thing that will solve your health. Like, it's all about consumption of some other product. And there's people laughing while we are being trained to get rid of our intuition and believe this data.
Yeah. We don't ever question what we want. We're just told what we want and we go with it. And we don't go, actually, do I really want this? And do I actually want what I think I want in some way, like meta way?
Well, people 20 or 30 years ago, when there wasn't this problem with diabetes and health and chronic illness, were they doing red light therapy and drinking kombucha and it wasn't, that's not the problem.
Not the problem.
It's that we are being made mass consumers to keep a few people rich. That is the underlying problem.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And then it's interesting that I'm going to have your voice on my shoulder now every time I use the word nuanced or it depends.
Sorry,
because
you gotta commit to something, even if it's wrong.
That.
You have to commit.
I do get that, but then
that trains your intuition?
The nuance? It's nuance, and it depends, like a pushback against just this polarized world we live in. Because as you say, there's so much data, and there is so many people telling us not to trust their instincts because they've got some kind of motive of saying things. So of course they're saying, of course they're selling or promoting the one solution here or the one solution there. It's vegan diet or it's carnivore diet. It's cold baths or it's sauna. And it's like either one or the other. So that's when I appreciate the people go, well, it depends. And it's, this suits some people.
Yes. I just find that most things, the solutions I've got to are quite binary, that there is a way forward, that, people, there's a lot of nonsense and a lot of noise out there.
Understatement of 2025, I think, Liya.
Life is much simpler than we're making it. We are making it so complex because people want us to buy things. It's actually quite simple. And if you listen to the voice inside of you, it will tell you that 7-year-old you will be like, what is this nonsense? That 7-year-old will tell you. They're much wiser than us. This is all nonsense. If you want to go and play, play. If you want to run, run. Don't eat the junk. Just like, you know that. Don't eat the junk.
How did
eat the good stuff.
How did Einstein come up with everything he did without kombucha and red light therapy and cold baths in the morning?
Exactly. Like, who's having cold baths? Like, I can't think of anything worse. It's just, I like my cozy bed.
I think, and I've said this in the past on the show and maybe on social media and stuff, that I think it's cool to experiment. I do think, like, I've done breath work, I've done cold exposure, I've done all the things, I've tried all the different workouts.
Yes.
And I think it's cool to dive into them really deep and say, I'm going to do it for a month. And you annoy your friends. We've all got those friends that are like messages, oh yeah, you're part of that cult and that crew now. But I think it's cool to experiment, but then always in the back of your mind go, I don't want to get too attached to this. Like, I don't want my mornings to depend on this. I'm going to experiment.
Yes.
I'm going to try it when I feel like it. I'll try and keep up a streak when I want to keep up a streak. But if it stops, it's okay. I'm going to survive if I haven't meditated for 5 minutes in the morning. All will be well.
Yes, take the pressure off your shoulders. Yeah. And we do have to try things because the world is changing, and we've got phones now that we didn't, and there's news. So we do have to resist against the sort of the new things that come to find some balance. But there was a really brilliant comedian, and he is like, in the old days, I used to practice mindfulness before the phone. When I went to the toilet, all I would do is take a mindfulness. When I was on the bus, I would watch the rain drip down the window because there was nothing else to do. Mindfulness. It was like, so we have become the opposite of mindful. We have become forgetful because the phone is always there, just distracting us. So we do need some things to get some discipline to remove it. But once you try things, if it's working for you, carry on. If it's not working for you, you don't have this punishing regime of things that aren't working for you. Just if it doesn't work for you, just stop.
Yeah, I love it as a call to action straight away. We're only 10 minutes in. Yes. It's like, oh my God, I need to rewrite my life. But yeah, it's good. So we have talked about we're in this state of anxiety because we're not listening to our intuition. We've got data overload. Yes. And of course, that's turning on the stress response all the time. I've got to buy, I've got to consume, I've got to be busy, I've got to look productive, etc. Now, you then talk about how that causes us to enter, if that's the right word, the dreaded drama triangle.
Yes.
So what do you mean by the dreaded drama triangle?
What is this? So this is the default human setting. And once you discover it, you will start to see it everywhere. It's like this aware ping, you suddenly get this awareness. So the dreaded drama triangle was discovered by Stephen Karpman. He was a psychologist in the 60s, and he was a student of a man called Eric Berne. And Eric Berne came up with the theory of transactional analysis. So you might have heard of this one. It's the parent-child-adult interactions. So that was a theory it's used in a lot of sort of psychology theory. And so this was the next step. So it's a triangle. So the triangle is a very stable shape. And once and I find that a lot of the things I've discovered in sort of mental health, it does follow the rules of maths and physics, and the life force is a thing just like other forces. And so once it enters this triangle shape, we get stuck there. And what happens is that we focus on a problem, and then our anxiety rises. That's what Edmund Friedman described, the anxiety rise. And then we take one of three roles. Either you can become the victim, someone who says, poor me, or you can become the rescuer, someone says, poor you, and they look at the victim in the problem and they say, poor you, or they can be a persecutor, someone who says, you are the cause of the problem. So the persecutor and the rescuer sit above, and the victim is at the bottom of the triangle. They're sort of receiving all this hate from the top, and they get stuck there. And we tend to move around. So once the victim receives all of that, then they can become the persecutor. They can switch role and say, well, sod you, don't do that. And we just keep moving around. It's really this rapid switching. And there's books written about this, the rapid switching, but I don't find that really useful because you can just keep mapping these moves. What I find really useful is whatever position, you sort of freeze frame in time. What position am I now? and how do I exit? So you just need to stop
So
it.
if I'm one of those things, is someone else always the other thing?
It doesn't always have to be a person. It can be a thing.
Right.
So it can be a situation that can be the rescuer. It can be a situation that can be the persecutor. The victim is usually a person.
Right.
It's usually a person. But the other two can be situations. So you can triangulate with situations.
Okay. And we're constantly, flicking between these different roles?
Constantly. Once you realize, you'll say, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I've been playing this game. So whenever you notice there is a lot of energy happening here, there's a lot of action, but nothing is improving. Everyone's stuck. There's a lot of miscommunication, resentment happening. It's a drama triangle. That's why it's a lot of energy and action, but nothing's getting better.
I'm just trying to think of points in my life where I've been one or the other and looked for the other. I guess there's definitely times when I've felt like a victim.
Yes.
And I guess that means that by treating myself as a victim straight away, I've taken away my agency. There's nothing I can do about this.
Yes.
Then I'm looking for a rescuer.
Yes.
Of course, if that's a partner or someone a friend or family, like that's not fair to them. You're my rescuer.
Yes.
Or can the persecutor be me as well? Like I'm the victim, and the persecutor is that voice in my head going, "You're an idiot, Sam. You're a piece of."
Yes. So you can have an internal triangle or an external triangle. So you can triangulate involving someone else or a situation outside, or it can all be going on inside here. And I do draw triangles sometimes where someone's internal voice and their real is they're in that sort of inner critic can be the persecutor against their sort of real of their self. So that can happen quite easily.
So
triangulate within yourself.
Let's get it a bit more real then. How has it shown up in your life? How has the drama triangle shown up in your life?
Yeah, it shows up in everyone's life because we tend to focus on problems. I think it must be a survival instinct. I think they say we are 6 to 7 times more likely to think about problems than solutions because, you can see how if there is a danger, evolutionary-wise, we want to remember dangers, remember problems, but that makes us cycle around this. So for myself, the victim, I think the epiphany about victim, I'm sure I've did a lot of victim all through my life, but the epiphany I had was when I had gestational diabetes 3 times. And I was just like, poor me, I'm suffering. This is so awful the whole way through, and looking to my healthcare professionals as my rescuer. But I went through this period of sort of personal growth around 2010 and just obsessively reading about anything personal development, leadership, and diabetes. These 3 topics just started obsessing me. And I started to realize after a while there are some real structural issues in the healthcare system. And no one can rescue me in the way that I want to be rescued. There's some problems here. And I realized I'm trying to say, poor me, but no, I'd got to the point, I had enough knowledge. I didn't have all of it, but I had enough knowledge that I realized I have no rescuer. And either I have to shift, I have to say I'm going to be the master of my own destiny here, or I'm going to stay stuck forever without it. It was just, it's so uncomfortable to not complete the triangle that I had to leave it. And so that was my epiphany with victim. And then as I started doing more of this work, I started to drop that victim. I think at that point I dropped it. I just realized as soon as you say poor me, an orderly queue forms up in front of you of persecutors and rescuers. Everyone, it's like douche, douche, douche. Everyone starts like telling you, because they mean well. They want you to get the thing that you say you want to get. But the way of delivering, when they say poor you, or you're the cause of the problem, it just keeps you more stuck. But as soon as you stop being victim, they stop. They can't do that anymore. There's nothing to grab hold of. So I gave up victimhood. And then I started noticing when I was being a rescuer. Now I'm an empath. And that's how I've kind of got into this world of work, that I feel other people's feelings like they're my own. And it took me quite a long time to realize that I was going around sorting out everything and doing all this great work, and people getting annoyed with me. It's like, why are they getting annoyed with me? I'm just trying to make it better. But it's because it was their feelings. They weren't mine. I think maybe I've got too many mirror neurons or something in my head, but I just feel it so intensely when someone is suffering. And then I try and make it better. Well, I was trying to make it better for them. And then I realized actually they're the only ones that can make it better. There's this sort of finding where I end and they begin. That was like a real journey for me. And so then I learned to sidestep rescuing because I just realized it gets people more stuck. If it's their problem, They have to solve it. I can be a help. I can be a help and support, but I can't rescue them. And then I kept thinking, who's this big bad persecutor? I can see when I'm being a victim. I can see when I'm being a rescuer. But I don't think I'm persecuting. I'm such a nice person. And then I could see a couple of caricature persecutors in my life. I was like, I'm not like them. I'm so nice. And then I had one epiphany at work. And then I had another epiphany when there was a miscommunication with a mom at school. And I threw my husband under the bus. It's all his fault. And then I had a flash because I'd been asking the same question in my head. Who's a persecutor? Who's a persecutor? And it came out my mouth. And I thought, oh my God. And then I started to see it's like when I started to persecute, it was in slow motion. When you can like hear a little voice in the background that you're doing it right now. And again. And then I started to see, oh my God, every time I'm feeling some discomfort, like a hot potato, and I don't think it's mine, I'm going, dush, it belongs to you, or you, or you. And I'm keeping that person stuck. And I was like, oh, I get the whole triangle now. I do all of it.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, so I guess a question would be how to recognize it in ourselves, people listening, going, oh, well, how can I tell? I mean, maybe that's obvious. I don't know if that's a stupid question, but maybe rescuer and persecutor aren't as easy to recognize in yourself. When am I doing this too much?
Our hardest to rescue, I think that is the order of recognition. Victim is very easy to recognize because everything feels awful. Everyone's coming and having a go at you. And you think you're not capable of solving some problem. So the question in your head, are you saying, I can't fix this one, and you're looking around, you're the victim? Or are you saying, I'm enough, I'm going to sort this out, I've got that agency, I can do this. So if it feels so horrible to be a victim and to receive that from other people that it's very obvious when you're a victim. So I think this order of recognition comes in the same way for everyone. Rescuer is the next one because you get some backlash. You do all this good work and people have a go at you. It's like, what? Why is that happening? It's like, well, I did so much for them and they're still not grateful. When you start to have thoughts like that, it might be that you're rescuing. It might be that you're taking on a responsibility that's not yours, and you're not holding that person as capable to solve their own problem. That's when your work is getting a backlash. You might be a rescuer. And the hardest one to recognize is persecutor, because it feels like you notice some hot potato, some bad thing has happened. And I think it's a lack of pain tolerance in ourselves in that situation, that we feel some discomfort and we want to get rid of it. Hot potato, it's yours. And the thing about that is that it feels good. Mm-hmm. It feels good to get rid of that hot potato. The other person who's receiving it was the victim. Remember how bad it felt to be the victim? They feel it good and proper, that they're even more stuck now. But it is really hard to recognize when you're being a persecutor. And there is also this thing that all these behaviors are unconscious. All of them are equally destructive. But when you realize you've been a persecutor, because your intention wasn't bad. It's so obvious. It's so obvious, this guy's messing it up by doing this thing. You're just trying to point out the obvious to them. But you're getting them more stuck. But when you realize that actually the thing that you were doing might have been holding them in that position, and as soon as you zip it, they might just rise up and solve their own problem. It's really uncomfortable. I say in my talk, it's a bit like when Homer Simpson goes, no. But I also say, the past is history, the future is a mystery, and the present is a gift. Whatever we've done, everyone is doing it. You don't need to beat yourself over the head just because you did this thing, because everyone is doing it. And as soon as you can realize, then you can stop, and then you can create a whole new future. And that relationship shifts in a second when you can stop doing it.
And I also feel like sometimes maybe we need to give ourselves a bit of a break when we are the victim and we are feeling a bit sorry for ourselves. I know I've had periods in the last kind of 2 years where it was just a bit crap, and I needed to let go of I need to do something, I need to get out there, and I need to keep exercising. I need to, I don't know, like keep moving, Sam. When actually, I've talked to psychologists on this show and other people as well that saying like, Sam, sometimes you just needed to like sit with that feeling and be okay with it. Like it was all right to be a victim. Obviously you don't want to stay in that victim mentality, but maybe kind of an evening of going, I need to have a big cry here. And I'm just like feeling shit.
And you need to let it out.
But it's like, you don't want to stay there too long.
I think someone's, yes, exactly. Don't stay there. You need to, it's therapy. I think a coach once said to me, someone comes and tells you this awful thing happened the first time you listen. And then the second time you say, I am still listening and I hear you. And the third time you listen. And then by the fourth time, it's like,
man up, sort yourself out.
I don't, no, man up. But are we sort of wiring a story now? Or are we, like you can get into that habit of that story or you can get into a habit of the other triangle,
and I think
the empowerment
same
triangle.
with the rescuer, surely as well. Like sometimes we need a bit of rescuing. Sometimes we need a bit of advice and a little help and a little direction and a bit of comfort and support. But we can't rely on that all the time. I remember a meditation I started, like a guided meditation. It was actually a prayer. It was kind of, I don't know why I kind of fell upon this guided, more religious, what would I call it? Guided meditation or prayer. I don't know. But I did. And it talked about this, like, what was it? Just about like, I don't need anyone else's affection. I don't need to be in control all the time. And it was quite an interesting one that like really suited me at that time. Like, because I had just broken up with a long-term partner and felt like I was really missing that closeness and that affection. And I wanted to kind of tell myself like, it's okay. I don't need that. But then sometimes it is okay to need that. And we do want that human contact. And it's, where's the balance?
Yes. No, well, I think it is a beautiful thing to want to help other people. And it is a human instinct and we are social creatures. We live and to need each other is a beautiful, to want to need to interact. So it's not saying, we don't touch anyone. We don't want, I don't want to be rescuer, so I won't go near anyone. Can I tell you about the other triangle?
Yeah, well, we're going to get into it. Go on, finish.
So there is another way to exist that is more constructive. So we do need to have these interactions, but in a constructive way. And that desire to help people is a beautiful thing. And that's what pushes society forward. It helps people rise up, but we just have to be conscious and do it in a conscious way, not in the default setting of it's your fault or, you're incapable of doing this. We have to actually, the things that we do need to actually help people to rise up. So we shouldn't let go of that instinct to be close to each other, to help each other, but just in a constructive way.
And we will move on to the alternative, of course. But it just what you were saying then made me think of how, someone could also take the rescuer role and be kind of compassionate and patient with you when actually that's the last thing you need, maybe. Like, I don't know, maybe someone that is not making very healthy choices and that's showing up in different ways and that you can kind of see them getting more unhealthy or I don't know, just, making choices that are like, okay now, but in 10 years probably aren't serving them. But we need to say, oh, you're fine, don't worry, treat yourself, you're beautiful the way you are. Whereas actually, is that the best thing you could say to them? Or is that just an easy solution for you when actually they might need a more direct approach?
It is a minefield, isn't it, Sam? It's a minefield because I tend to ask myself the question because there is drama everywhere. And when you dive into something where you're not invited, where someone didn't want your opinion, you can get a quick, and it's not really helping anyone. So I tend to ask myself before I start, is this mine? Yes or no? And there's this psychiatrist, Scott Peck, he's brilliant. He wrote The Road Less Traveled. It was sort of based on his life's work in psychotherapy. And he said, understanding what we are and what we are not responsible for in this life is the greatest of human challenges. And I think that is really true. Like that person that you know who, and this is another, I may not even go there because that's a minefield I could talk for about 2 hours about that, about the BMI and there's no healthy weight. So I think I won't go with that example, but maybe the example that we were talking about before of, someone, if you wanted to be sad for a while, that was my point here? That actually, like after 3 times, we were saying, it may not be constructive. If it is a relation, if you say, this is mine, this is one of my loved ones, this is someone that I'm in a compassionate, and I want them to grow. Saying rescuer, saying poor you, that's what the rescue would say. Poor you might keep them stuck there, might keep them in that position of, and actually that's not for their growth. And actually, you've asked that question: is this mine? Yes or no? Actually, I'm enabling this person by keeping on saying poor you, you're stuck here. Actually, if I say you are powerful and capable, and I can see this brilliant life ahead for you. I'm not going to keep saying, I will not say poor you anymore, because I think you're an amazing person. What's going to happen to that person then? That's a bit of a challenge and a bit of a coaching there. I think you're amazing. I can't feel sorry for you. It's like, whatever happened, their loss. Let them go and cry. I don't want to see you cry anymore. Go and be your brilliant self. I don't see the sob story. Sorry.
Nice. And is it kind of, maybe it's kind of implied that staying in these roles is not good for us, but I don't know if there's, before we move on, something else to be said about how it might be affecting people in ways that they don't realize. What comes up for me is that being stuck in any of these 3 roles in the drama triangle means that you are not in control. You're not living according to your intuition. No. You're not, fulfilling your potential. That's just what comes up. But is there anything else to be said for how this could be affecting people in ways that they don't even realize?
I think it's just expending energy. If you just even looking at the news, so drama happens internally, between people, in organizations. You can keep going the level higher between countries. If you just look at the news, it's all drama.
I don't know what you're talking about. Everything seems fine at the moment, Liya.
It's just these cycles. Nothing's getting better. We're just, a lot of energy, a lot of money is being spent, a lot of high-level meetings are happening, but we're just switching roles. So when there is a lot of energy being expended, a lot is happening, but you can just see nothing. It's like hopelessness about that you feel when you watch it. Deep inside, nothing is getting better here, because they're just doing this. This bad thing happened to this group, and now they're doing this bad thing to this group, and then it's like, where is the beginning? It's like the chicken and egg. Where did it start? What is the point? So how is anything going to get better if we keep going round and round in circles like this?
So, solutions.
Solutions. So there is, you'll be glad to know, Sam, after all this doom and gloom, there is another triangle. So we have to stay in triangles because it's such a stable shape. So like I had that epiphany when there was no rescuer, this tension, we have to find that triangle shape to keep moving around. So this is the work of David Emerald in his work, the book, The Power of TED. And so there's 3 matching roles. So whatever role you find yourself in the drama triangle, you've got to switch to the matching role in the empowerment dynamic. So the victim becomes a creator, someone who says, I am enough. Whatever the situation, I'm enough to deal with this. The rescuer, who says, poor you, actually says, no, actually, I believe you are powerful and capable. So-and-so is powerful and capable. How are you going to solve this? And then the persecutor, who says, this is all your fault, says actually the very opposite of that. I believe in you. So rather than the crush down, this is all yours, they say, actually, I see you up here somewhere. You are someone amazing. Get up to that level because I believe in you.
Nice. What was that called? What was that last one? Instead of persecutor, you're...
The last one is the challenge. The persecutor becomes the challenger.
The persecutor becomes the challenger.
It becomes the challenger. And remember, even in the drama triangle, the persecutor and rescuer can be situations, not just a person. The same is true of the empowerment dynamic. It can be a situation. And when it's a situation, it can be the persistence of the thing that makes you reframe the way that you're thinking. So some disputes have been going on for a long time. After a while, you say, actually, come on. Let's grow here. Let's learn something. Let's have a new attitude to this. It's going to challenge us. It's not going to crush it. It's not happening to me. It's happening for me because I am going to find some extra resources and deal with this in a totally different way.
That seems like a difficult one to make the change with, going from victim mentality to creator mentality, going from this is happening to me, this is really tough, I feel sorry for myself, to okay, I've got this, because that's going to have to undo a lot of brain neuron connections in your mind that have been laid down over the years of, I can't do anything about this. This is tough. So many things have happened to me throughout my life, and it's all been, I just feel like I've been smashed with loads of crap over the years. Like, how am I ever going to step out the other side of that and go, right, I've got this?
Yeah. And a weird thing is that as human beings, we like to be right. There is this sort of innate thing that we like to be right. Whatever story we've been saying, we want it to be right. So if all our life we've been saying, well, it's all unfair and, they're all against me, and there's something in us
so comfortable,
that wants
isn't
to
it?
prove that it's comfortable to say that is right. And, when another person does that, you get to say, yeah, see, I told you, right, I'm a piece of shit. So actually, it does, it's the biggest, sorry about bad language there.
Swear away.
So it's the biggest energetic rise, that victim to creator, that actually it is like, in the Kung Fu Panda, he does loads of Qigong. I've practiced Qigong as well. And actually you can feel, I get the point of it. It is that victim to creator move that you need to build actually your life force, that thing that feels empty when you're down there, when you say, I am bad, when you're feeling shame, there's nothing in the tank. And that is an actual thing that you need to build up. To get to be, if you say I'm courageous, I can do this, it's a bigger version of you, isn't it, than that little version. And yet, if you are, I think the biggest thing is if you can just let go, the biggest, to have that flexible mind that you can just let go of those stories, then you can change in an instant. If you can actually just say, I am enough, and believe it in an instant without clinging on to the stories of the past, you can actually make that shift. But it's just, do you want to be right? Do you want to cling to some old story? Or can you let go and be the best, baddest version of you?
Nice. I didn't realise we'd get a Kung Fu Panda reference in there, but there we go. I've never watched it. Now I feel like I need to go and watch it.
Oh, you should. It's so good. There's so much wisdom in there.
Nice. It's like, what's the other one? The emotions one. Inside Out.
Have you not seen that one?
Oh man, I feel like you'd love that one. There's two of them, and that's all about understanding what's going on and emotions. It's good.
Really.
So how can I do that without, I don't know, writing in a journal how beautiful I am? You're beautiful, Sam. Be confident, Sam. Like all these affirmations, because that feels a little bit like not very genuine for me. And I want to be more of a creator. I want to be more, have more agency. But I still talk to myself like, you're rubbish. Like, you can't do this. You're going to fail. Of course that happened. Like, I don't know, I won't go too far into too many examples, but still not talking very kindly to myself, even after years of thinking that I understand this work and wanting to have a better inner dialogue. I still find it hard. And I don't know whether that's where a therapist, a coach, something comes in. I don't know.
There's and so this is sort of the route to enlightenment. Like, how do we get enlightened? And there are 100 ways there. So I wouldn't say that there's any one way. The way that resonates with you is the correct way. So for me, that move to higher consciousness is what we're talking about. So there's low levels where you're saying things like, I am bad, that's the lowest level of consciousness, that's shame or guilt, I did a bad thing. But when we want to get up to courage and love and joy, so I trained to deliver this course, The Clarity Catalyst. It was developed at Stanford University as part of a business master's. And there was a professor there, Michael Ray, and he was into yoga and all these Eastern practices. And he saw that the business students, they had all this technical knowledge, but they weren't creative. They couldn't say, I'm enough to solve this problem. I can think of a new idea. They could repeat what someone was telling them, but they had lost that creativity that they had when they were children. If you're a teacher, children are wild. If you tell them, come up with a new idea, there are a million ideas. But what happens as we get older? Why do we start thinking like that we're not enough, or what's happening there? And so he used his ideas from Eastern training, and he developed one of the most life-changing courses ever taught at Stanford University. And it's 8 weeks online, and week by week, we hammer out one of those things. It's like taking down the walls. It's like life conditions us, and how do we break that down? And so that is the route that I teach to my clients, that just how do we take down those voices in our head? How do we be present to what's really happening in the here and now? How do we connect more deeply to other people? How do we believe in our potential to be creative? So that's, and I mean, it's changed my life, this course. I live by it. Everything I'm doing is by the teachings on this course. I find it brilliant, but there's other ways. So it's not the only way. So whatever is working for you, to get to that state of really believing in yourself.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And a lot of our listeners, we work in schools. That's just kind of a what is it? A result of the fact that I was a primary school teacher, and originally the podcast was directed at people who worked in schools. Still got a lot of school connections, which is awesome. And I love thinking about how all of these lessons can be applied to people who work in schools, to children, the relationship between teachers and children, all that good stuff. So I'm thinking how this can be applied in that relationship, I guess, between a teacher and a child, and thinking about creator, coach. Last one was challenger, wasn't it? So is that something you've thought about, how it would look in education?
Yes. And so I think teachers are likely to fall into all the positions. So when I do my workshop, and it's maybe something we should develop for teachers at some point in the future, but we look at exiting every role. But I think probably the most likely role may be rescuer, where a child has a problem and they feel this urge to solve it for them. And I think the biggest move from one triangle to the other, from the drama to empowerment, is the attitude. So people can do all the tools that I suggest, but if they do it with a pessimistic attitude, it's never going to work. So in the drama triangle, we've got a pessimistic attitude. The victim thinks, I can't solve this. They see a problem, I can't solve this. The rescuer looks at the victim and they say, they can't solve this, pessimism. The challenger and the persecutor looks at them and says, they can't solve it. Just have it. I can't solve it. You can't solve it. It's your problem. I'm just letting you know about it, by the way. Whereas in the empowerment dynamic, the attitude is optimism. So the victim who becomes a creator says, I can solve this. Like that shift in energy is the biggest thing. I can, with a like light in your eyes, that sort of sparkle in your eyes, I can solve it. And the coach says, you can solve this, with a sparkle in the eye, like attitude. And the challenger says, I believe in you. Of course, that's the version of you. So the biggest shift is the sparkle in the eye, the attitude. And so that is the biggest shift that teachers can make, just pulling themselves up to believe. And there was a really interesting experiment that I mentioned to you earlier by Rosenthal and Jacobson. I think it was in the 60s. It was a long time ago. But they went into a primary school and they randomly chose 5 children. But they said to the teachers, these children have been IQ tested and they're going to be late bloomers. They're going to be brilliant. And so then they went and the teachers found out, and then they went away. And then 8 months later, they came back. And those 5 children were the top performers in the whole class. And it just sort of shows the power of expectations. And we know it intuitively. If you might have had 1 or 2 people in your life who really looked you in the eye and said, I see something special here. I think you're gonna really do something brilliant. And it's like the petrol that can fuel your whole life. It is so powerful when someone really believes in you. And we go around craving it, just offering ourselves to other people, wondering if we'll get that. And we often get the persecutor or the rescuer putting us down, but that's what we're craving. And so really that's what teachers should remember, that when you deeply believe, when you're with a sparkle in your eyes, you'll get a sparkle in their eyes, and they will rise up more than you could have dreamed.
And when we get just that one person that says, I'm proud of you, Sam, I'm proud of you, Liya, like you can do this, you got this. And it's like, that just changes the whole game, doesn't it? And I guess the grumpy old man Sam, though, would go, well, then that's, isn't that like, you're still relying on someone else to tell you that, aren't you? So I guess this is all just a balance, isn't it? Between understanding that, that person believing in us gives us inspiration, changes our internal dialogue, but we don't rely on them too much.
I think there's what's coming up for me here is that someone has to break the cycle in the system, in any system. Someone has to be the one that says, I believe in you, or I'm enough. When one person does it, the whole system starts to shift to the empowerment dynamic. But that one person has to sustain themselves. So it's like this, we're in some kind of like equilibrium of energy. And where does that one person who's shifting it keep upbeat from? Because you've got to give it from somewhere. So that person has to be. And what I do a lot myself is that I have my own internal triangle. I make it really upbeat. Every time I do something good, I'm like, that was amazing, Liya. I'm so proud of you. Or if I'm like got something challenging coming up, I think of like 10 brilliant things that I've done. And just, I am like the voice that I want to hear. I don't go seeking it out from someone else. I do it to myself. And I also have lots of secret, joyful fun that I don't tell other people about.
Okay.
I just go and,
some hidden vices.
Just fun, just like childish fun, because life is so serious and so like this whole tick box exit, and we forget that the point of it is to have a good time and enjoy yourself. So if you want to be the sustaining person in the system, you have to keep yourself at a high energy level, and you have to have some fun. Be lighter about it. You can't be this martyr that's going off like serving everyone. You need to have a lot of fun in your life. So I would advise teachers, go and enjoy your life, have some fun, because there will be more of you to give in those situations. You won't be you won't be digging into an empty bucket to find that bit of.
It's like
joy.
a constant. When someone asks the question, "What would you go back and tell your younger self?" I would always tell them, don't take this so seriously. Like, it's not a big deal. Just lighten up. And I know, when you're in the midst of something really crappy, someone saying just lighten up is not a very helpful thing to say to them. But actually, if I look at just in the last 6 months, when I got myself all in a complete like tiz, to use my mum's expression, about like, what am I going to do with my life? How can I find the job? I need to figure this out. And I just look back and go, everything worked out. I could have like enjoyed that whole 6 months instead of having this mindset of this is a struggle. And it takes one of my friends to message me on WhatsApp, who listened to a podcast and said, Sam, like, not everyone's got it figured out. Like, you need to give yourself a bit of a break, mate. And it was like, oh man, just that one friend telling me that was,
Yes. Wait, do you know what's really helpful for this? It's using that, you're using distance there to make we're in like 6 months down the line, you can see none of that stuff was important. Like a year down the line, it'll be even less important. The best thing to use,
remind yourself of that in the moment and go.
In the moment, in a month, will this be important? In 6 months, will it be important? In 2 years? Actually, the best thing to use is to ask death. When you are on your deathbed, and this is the Stoics use this a lot, when you are on your deathbed, will this thing be important? In an instant, that's like the biggest distance that you can sort of contemplate. None of this stuff will be important when you're dead. On your deathbed, you will not be worrying about these itsy bitsy little things. Like, this will all sort itself out. So just enjoy this moment. The opportunities are already there. When you stop worrying, you can actually see them.
Will it matter in a week? Will it matter in a month? Will it matter in a year? That embarrassing thing that you said at the party. It's eating away
on your deathbed.
No one remembers.
You're not even going to remember this thing. Say another 10 embarrassing things. Go and do it on purpose. I did that when I started my job. I was like so nervous to go on social media. I had no desire to be a public figure. Not that I'm a public figure now, but I just wanted to hide. We're working on it. But I just wanted to hide out. I just wanted to put the information I was sort of understanding out there, but without me. And then I was just like, right, come on, Liya, now we're not going to get very far if I have that attitude. And so I decided to do some sort of therapy on myself and just put out the most embarrassing posts. I had like one with my face like that, and like just to desensitize myself, just to let people think she's full of herself. That was a worry, that let people think she's going to fail. Let them. It doesn't matter to me anymore. I'm going to embarrass myself as much as I can on purpose. So I stopped caring about it. Who cares what anyone thinks? I will not care about it on my deathbed. Let them. So I just went through a phase of doing really embarrassing posts for a while. And then I just thought, actually, I'm not embarrassed. Nothing embarrasses me anymore. Let me make a fool of myself.
I've got a lot of love for that. And it's like true. If you hid behind the text and stuff, people can't relate to that, but they can relate to you and your passion that's coming through right now during this like episode. And I'm trying to do the same as well. Like, I think, that self is so cheesy. I don't know. But then I'm like, but it's serving a purpose. Yeah, no one cares, but also it's
Yes.
like, what is my goal here? My goal is to help people.
Yes.
And so maybe a bit of embarrassing myself is part of that.
Yes. And I guarantee you, no one is thinking about you. They might think that thought. Some people, I can see it. So they have this fleeting thought of like, she's going to fail. Oh, look at her. Like, what does she think? But beyond that, they don't think about it. They're thinking about themselves. Everyone is walking around thinking about themselves. So there might be a bit of negative thought here and there, but actually on the whole, the more you do it, the more you keep going, the more the thing that you're starting to do is less up in your imagination and more becoming reality on the ground, the more love you start to feel coming towards you. So just let the haters go. Let them go. Who cares?
So much love for that. So much love for that. I'm thinking whether we need to spend a little more time on switching some of these roles. We've talked a little bit about going from victim to creator.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
We talked about it linked to education, but maybe we should just open it out and just kind of in general life, how we maybe switch from the, where would I go from? Like the persecutor and the, I'm getting all my roles mixed up here. Oh, are you still there?
It froze for a second, Sam. Could you just repeat what you said in the last 30 seconds?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that question.
Are you back? Oh. You're there.
Oh, you've gone again. Oh, yeah. I'm here.
Hopefully that's fine.
I'm here.
Good.
Yeah.
I was talking about how we can go from one role to another. How can we step into this creator role and this challenger role? We'd mentioned a little bit about how in a school going to more of a coach and a challenger role, great. But any other ways any other kind of framework steps that people can take to get out of the dreaded drama triangle into this more powerful triangle?
Yes. I think that the main thing is to stop focusing on the problem. That is a start. The starting point is we focus on a problem. And if I take the example of healthcare, we are focused on disease. If we think, how do we solve disease, we're going to get a very different answer than if we ask the question, how do we get back to health? They're very different starting points. And what with the whole healthcare system is now we've started with disease. Disease has happened. Disease is the persecutor. It's happening to the patient. And then the healthcare professionals have taken all this responsibility on themselves. So you can see there's all this burnout happening. Everyone's getting so stressed because we've got to save the patient from the disease. So the old model is based on infectious disease. In infectious disease and cancer, if there's something very specific, that is... there's a very specific cure, those things work. But most of what we're dealing with, sort of 80% of healthcare now, is chronic disease. Chronic disease doesn't work in that model. You can't do it for someone else. They're the only ones that can do it for them. And a really important point is that in either triangle, only one person can take responsibility for solving the issue. In the drama triangle, it's the rescuer. The rescuer rolls up their sleeves and says, right, I'm going to sort this out. I'm going to make that person do this thing. It never works. They will just start to hate you after a while. And they're the only ones that can solve it. In the empowerment dynamic, the only person that takes responsibility to solve it is the creator. So when we're empaths, when we're people that really care, we tend to get that urge because of what I've described. I think of people with too many mirror neurons, not too many, it's a beautiful thing to have them, but when you have a lot, you get that desire to sort everything out because you feel that pain so intensely. You see a problem and you want for that person what they're saying that they want themselves. It comes from a beautiful place. But when you pick up the responsibility, they become disempowered. So that is a thing that we need to understand. So in healthcare, we need to shift now. We need to say, what does health look like? And what are the things that we need to get back to health? What are the people who are healthy doing? Not how do we treat this disease? How many drugs can we come up with? How many more procedures or injections can we come up with? Actually, what are the people who are healthy doing? Let's take a quick look at them. And why do we do that? And empower people to do that themselves, not keep them held in the system of disempowerment. Focusing on the solution and don't touch the responsibility unless you're the creator.
Interesting. Yeah. Why is it that some people have just got those habits in place, I wonder? Just as you were saying that, related to chronic disease, heart disease, other things, diabetes.
Yes.
I do sometimes think, like, why is it that some of us are just healthy? They've got the habits in place and it seems so easy, whereas other people find it so much more difficult.
Yes. I think one of the things, which could be a whole podcast in itself, is that we believe that weight loss is the same as fat loss. That's what they're all these weight loss injections. We're just blindly trying to lose weight. People who are generally healthy aren't blindly trying. Once people start this cycle of trying to lose weight, every time they do it, so most of the population don't have obesity. It's only about 25% of the population. And people who don't have obesity, this is going to be a tangent answer. People who don't have obesity lose equal amounts of muscle mass and fat mass when they lose weight, if they just calorie restrict and try and lose weight. So each time they start, if they ever go down this route, then they'll start this lifetime of cycling. So each time they do it, when they end, their metabolic rate is lower because they've lost a load of muscle mass. And when they regain, they can eat less calories now because they've lost a load of muscle. And when they regain, they're gaining fat. And then so their metabolism is in a worse state than when they started. And then they do it again. Then they roll up, they feel this shame, there's a whole this weight bias in society, and they feel it all over again. And then they start again and they're like, right, I got to lose weight again. And they hit the gym and they start eating, like eat well, and they're not losing weight. And then they start starving themselves because they're like, I need to lose weight. And then they lose another load of muscle mass. And so eat, and you can see it, all these things. Everyone knows this, that if you do yo-yo dieting, you're in a much worse state than if you did nothing at all. So people who are healthful, who are into sports, they never started this cycle in the first place of trying to, that is what's happening.
And that isn't it, like it's been shown that people often put on more weight than when they first started dieting. And as you say, it keeps kind of happening. It keeps happening. And also we know that's happening with the weight loss injections, that if you stop, you'll regain and regain more. That I think the one good thing about the weight loss injections is that they are at super speed accelerating the process that we are doing slowly on a mass scale. So people at some point open their eyes to it.
Will start to have the epiphany. Yes, what we're actually doing here. That's the only benefit.
Yeah, I've heard that if you're on them, you really need to focus on the maintaining your muscle mass. Like you need to get on the resistance exercise, which surely just seems like good advice anyway. And this is all linked to what I've talked to Kieran Soda about, like about this whole BMI, weight loss, all that stuff. Like, of course, just that advice doesn't have to, it's just general good advice anyway.
Yes. If you were eating lots of protein and doing resistance training, there is absolutely no need to be on an injection. Right. So to say that you need to be on the injection and you must do these things to save your muscles, you don't need the injection if you do those things. That's all you need to do. It
will happen. Well, it's my fault. I asked a really open-ended question just out of absolute nowhere.
Sorry,
no, it's my fault.
That's
well, not fault. It's fine. It's all good stuff. But maybe you need to come back on the show and talk about this, if that's all right with you.
I've got
nice one. Well, oh man, it's been really interesting to see how this shows up. You started the episode by saying, like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's showing up everywhere. And just as we were talking, it's like, I've seen that in myself. Yeah, I've seen that in other people. I've seen that in workplaces. Yes. I've seen that in the news, as you mentioned, presidents and prime ministers. So really interesting. But then, of course, we want to be solutions focused here. And you talked about the alternatives and all that. Focus on solutions, not the problem, and how that could look. So it's been great. It's been a joy to talk to you, Liya. I've loved it. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you, Sam. Such a joy as well. Thank you for asking.
I have 3 questions I ask every guest at the end of every episode, if you've got time.
Yes.
Excellent. Now, this first one, I put it in ChatGPT because I've realised I've been wording it grammatically incorrect for like the past 2-3 years. Exactly.
I'm dyslexic, I think, so I can't.
I mean, it's a slight, no one's mentioned it, so I think it's just me, but I did think it was funny. But the question is, what's one lesson you wish you had been taught when you were a child? I think that's okay this time. Go on.
Yes. So I think it's not for lack of people not saying it, but somehow in life, I just didn't realize how amazing I am. The potential of a human being is so amazing. And not just me, how amazing everyone is. It's just, I like shaking thinking about it, like the potential, because most people are living in a box. And actually what we are able to create in this lifetime, and this precious time that we have on this planet, is absolutely amazing. So I wish I had really, it just, as I learned more and more when I went on this journey, I was just, it's like eyes are like, oh my God, in an instant, if we all do it, we can change this world. It is so Yeah.
Next one. What's one habit that you've maybe added to your life, or a habit that you've got rid of that's helping you feel happier and healthier?
Just trusting my intuition, just that realizing that everyone, there's just so many products being pushed on us, and things to do, and other people's lists of how you should live to make your life better. Actually, I just do now. I try things out, like you said, I experiment, but just I follow what makes me feel good. If I need a nap, I have a nap. I need to do nothing for a little bit, I do nothing.
And the last one, if you could give everyone in the world one book, which book would you give them?
It would have to be Edwin Freeman's A Failure of Nerve. It's a brilliant piece from a really brilliant man.
Nice one. Right, where can people find you on the internet? More about your workshops that are coming up, aren't they? Where can people get involved?
So I am at www.drliyajacob.com. That's DRLIYAJACOB.com. And we've got a Drama Triangle for Parents workshop coming up on the 17th of March, Monday the 17th at 7:30 p.m. And the next Clarity Catalyst course is starting in May. They're always on Thursday evenings at 7 p.m.
Nice one. Thank you so much again for coming on the show, and I'm looking forward to having you back on very soon.
Oh, thank you, Sam. It's been such a pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for tuning in. I really hope you found my conversation with Liya insightful. If you enjoyed the episode, share it with friends, family, and colleagues who you think would find it helpful too. And remember, you can support the podcast by following and rating the show on whichever app you're listening on. Thank you again, and I look forward to bringing you another episode soon.
That was a Good Gosh Media production.